Where do things stand now after the first weekend in June? The visitor action for Tennessee, I know, will start to ramp up this weekend and moving forward the rest of the month. What's the conversation right now with Tennessee's football recruiting?
When you look at it, guys, it's kind of quiet. And I've used this analogy the last couple of days, but it's almost like, especially with some of these recruits, it's like Tennessee was the team that had the third-round lead going into the fourth round of a golf tournament. And they'd watch that early morning wave before they tee off, shoot 30 on the front nine, and now they're one shot behind. They've not even teed off yet. So, like last weekend, they went into that weekend, either ahead or tied for about three different guys, and then that were visiting elsewhere, and they came out of the weekend either trailing or tied, depending on where they were before. And now it's up to them to kind of, go out and do their thing the next few weeks. They'll have about 6 visitors here this weekend. And then the following 2 weekends is just silly. The number of kids that are going to be here, like near 30 next weekend, around 20 the following weekend to round out the official visit weekends in June. And so it's going to be interesting to kind of see what happens. But we're still kind of, we're not even really to the starting gate yet for Tennessee when it comes to, the official visit season. It all kind of gets going this weekend. So we'll see what happens and kind of what transpires. But, the next 2 visit weekends are huge. This week, the headliner's Josh Petty. Tennessee will need to do well there to be able to try to make up some ground on Florida State.
You mentioned that Tennessee was either tied or in the lead after a big recruiting weekend, and then those same recruits maybe went to a different school and were either tied or slightly behind after that other visit. Do you think there's enough time for some of those kids for Tennessee to reclaim the lead? If so, what are some of those kids' commitment dates in terms of having that time to make up ground?
Yeah, the good news for Tennessee is none of those players shut it down. They're still going to take all their visits. You look at somebody like Charles House. He was at Alabama. This weekend he's at Georgia. And then next weekend he's at Tennessee. He's still planning to commit June 22nd. And so, yeah, there's plenty of time with him. Shaedy Hayward, kids from Georgia. Georgia seems like they got a lot of momentum out of last weekend for him. But he's going to visit, Florida, South Carolina, and then Tennessee, coming up. And so, Tennessee's got some time there. He doesn't commit until July 13th. He is later in July, first part of August. Travis Smith is July 13th. So Onis Conanbani, the defensive back out of South Carolina, he's going to be one that, you want to see him last. He loves the visits. He loves the recruiting process. So kind of whoever he's visited last is going to be the leader. Tennessee, he saw unofficially for Memorial Day weekend, the Vols were the leader. Then he goes to Florida State this past weekend. Florida State's the leader. He was the only OV at Florida State, so he gets all the attention, right? Everybody's like, oh, Onis, Onis is the man because Onis is the only person on campus. So, yes, they can make up ground. But, again, they're going to have to go out and do it. A year ago, similar storylines played out where Tennessee was the leader or perceived leader. And in these cases, the kids all said Tennessee led, with some, several prospects. And then, things flipped on them in June. They can't have that happen again. They've got to find a way to close. And you're not going to be perfect. You're not going to get all the guys, but you got to get your fair share. And I mean, get your fair share of the guys you truly covet. And so, the Charles Houses, Shaedy Hayward, David Sanders, all those top players, Bryce Donovan Jenkins, those are very important in the month of June.
What do you make of the Georgia momentum you mentioned with Shaedy Hayward?
Well, it's interesting because, Georgia was late to offer him, and I think the kids said a lot of the right things about, I'm not just going to fall in line just because they've come in here now. But, you get over there and they tell you what you want to hear, and they're going to show well. You're never going to have a bad time. If you're having a bad time on an official visit, you're looking to have a bad time on an official visit. Because, I mean, everybody's going to put their best foot forward. So, I guess for me, I'm not totally shocked. We'll see if they can flip it back. For me personally, I feel like it's less likely they flip Shaedy Hayward momentum back than Charles House. I think Charles House is much more doable. I think the Georgia kid from Georgia who all of a sudden now is loving up the Dogs, I think that's a little bit tougher road to hoe, but he's going to take all these visits, and he's going to give Tennessee a shot to do it. It'll be on them to kind of flip the switch back in favor of the Orange team.
Tennessee obviously wants to lock down the state. Tennessee is heavy in the state of Georgia, the Atlanta area. What other state besides Tennessee and Georgia do you feel like Tennessee is making the biggest impact?
I think for me, it's probably the state of North Carolina. Tennessee obviously wants to be in play there with several different players. Charles House being one, David Sanders being another. Tennessee would love to try to get Isaiah Gibson to campus. We're not sure if that'll happen. But even in 26 with Kendra Harrison, Faison Brandon, all those players, Jason, are really liking Tennessee a lot. And so I think it's really paramount that Tennessee recruits the footprint well. You can go and cherry pick out other states, but when you're having success, it was this way when you were in school. It was this way for a long, long time. When you're having success, you're normally pretty good in Georgia. You're normally pretty good in North Carolina, Virginia. And what's Tennessee started to find? Peyton Lewis and Cam Selden out of Virginia. James Pierce and David Hobbs, Jalen Wright out of North Carolina. So I think it's important to continue to recruit those schools within your footprint, those schools that are 3-4 hour drives away for prospects to, come to campus as much as possible. You're still going to get the occasional player from Texas or California or Florida or whatever, but to really be hitting on all cylinders, I think you got to recruit the states that, are within your footprint really, really well.
Back to one of those players in North Carolina that we've asked you about pretty much every week. You mentioned his name, David Sanders, 5-star offensive tackle, I think coming off a visit to Clemson with Tennessee, not this weekend, but next. The latest you hear with David Sanders?
I still feel like Tennessee's got a lot of momentum here. I'm going to take all these visits, and so Tennessee will have to survive that. But, I mean, you listen to it's what I've been talking about for a while. Like, if the thing ended today and you said you've got to make a pick, I'd pick Tennessee. You've seen a lot of national guys have similar thought processes, but with the caveat that this thing's not over. He's going to take visits. Georgia's certainly going to take their swing. Clemson just took their swing. Same thing with, Alabama. Same thing with Ohio State. And so it's a big boy recruitment. It's a who's who of college football elites. And so if you're able to land him, it's a big deal. Now I'll say this: the narrative has been crafted by several people that Tennessee's the team to beat. So now it's one of those things where, it's almost a no-win. Like, if you land him, most fans are going to go, yeah, we know that. It's felt like that for a while, no big deal. And if you don't, it's going to be the end of time, right? I would tell you that, if you're able to get him, like, it's a big deal. And it's a big, big deal that you can't harp on enough. So, you look at Tennessee's, tackle bodies. 2-3 seasons ago, Tennessee had about 2 tackle bodies. They have several tackle bodies on their roster right now. They want to continue to add, 1 or 2 more in this class, and it's really impressive what Josh Heupel and them have done on the line of scrimmage as far as just, the prototypical tackle body types compared to just 2 years ago.
Also, Price of Volquest.com. You have to expect Josh Heupel to recruit the nation's best quarterbacks. He's done it, especially in the last 2 recruiting classes. Is it too early to get super excited about, Faison Brandon, 2026 quarterback? I saw where there's already been a forecast, a prediction, a crystal ball, or a guess, whatever you call it these days, with him and the Vols.
No, it's not too early. I mean,
Okay.
you can certainly get excited about it. I mean, I walked out of Neyland Stadium Saturday night, and I looked at Brent Hubbs, and I said, I'm going to go ahead and call it. I think Tennessee is going to get that kid. Like, sometimes you just have a feel. Sometimes you just have a feel for how a kid's reacting, how parents of a kid are reacting. He's going to go take a bunch of visits. It's going to be a big boy battle, just like David Sanders. But it's relationships and it's development. And Faison Brandon has been to Tennessee so many times unofficially in the last 365 days. It's really impressive. And what Joey Halsley and Josh Heupel have done, recruiting quarterbacks, Nico, Jake Merklinger, George McIntyre, and now, where they're at with Faison Brandon. Of course, he's not committed yet, but it certainly feels like Tennessee's got a ton of momentum with him, and we'll see if they can keep it. I think you're still 6 to 8 months away before he does anything as far as commitment. So, Tennessee fans don't need to get excited like he's about to commit. I don't think that's the case, but I do think that right now Tennessee's got a ton of momentum with him, and he certainly likes this staff and this program a ton. And again, state of North Carolina, very important historically to Tennessee. When you think about Carl Pickens, Leonard Little, Jay Graham, you can keep going right down the line of a lot of uber-talented Tennessee players that are Hall of Fame type worthy, program Hall of Fame type worthy, that have come from the Tar Heel State.
Austin, last thing, we'll get you out of here. Tennessee hosting the Super Regional this weekend. Who will win it, Tennessee or Evansville, and in how many games?
I'll tell you who lost it, and it's the fans, because 3 p.m. and 11 a.m. for those first two games is gross. Tennessee's going to win this series. I would be stunned if they didn't. It would be one of the all-time upsets if they don't. I think any other year, Evansville probably kind of comes in sneaking around the chicken coop a little bit and maybe could pull a stunner like out of a game. After 2 years ago and the loss to Notre Dame, I just think Tony Vitello is going to look at a certain core group of this team that was very present to watch Notre Dame celebrate on its home field and miss the College World Series when you were the SEC regular season champ, you were the SEC tournament champ, and you were the number one overall seed. And that's going to be a driving force this week. We're not letting that happen again. We're going to be the ones that celebrate. We're going to go to Omaha. And what I love about Tennessee's path is not that I just think, oh, it's easy. No, it's not easy. There's nothing easy about any of this. But I love that they don't have other SEC teams in their way until potentially the finals. Like on their side of the bracket is new faces, new programs, and I think that's good for the Vols because it gives those teams – they have no scout. Now, Tennessee has no scout on them, but I think that's okay, and I think Tennessee's hitting for this group. You talk about, Dreiling, you talk about Tears, you talk about Semo, the way Hunter Ensley's hitting the ball here lately. It is more built. Yeah, they broke the 22 record for home runs, but see, I think they're very comfortable getting in a double fest. The way Blake Burke is hitting the ball now, at one point led the nation in doubles. I don't know where he finished out, but he still was right up there. I think that they're built better to succeed in that big park in Omaha.
They're covering it all. Tennessee baseball this weekend, football recruiting, basketball never stops. Volquest.com to read the work from Austin, his colleagues. Volquest has you covered. Hey, Austin, we appreciate the time. As always, great insight today. Thanks so much. We'll talk to you again soon.
Appreciate it, guys. Thank you.